Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the Warriors Stock Report. Tim Bontemps, ESPN senior writer here. Anthony Slater, ESPN senior writer there in Milwaukee, where Ryan Rollins, former second round pick of the Warriors, with no Giannis Antetokounmpo playing as a late scratch after being probable with knee soreness. Far from the first time, Slater, we have seen a team have a bit of a letdown when a star player gets scratched shortly before tip. But full credit to Ryan Rollins, who's had an incredible couple games in a row, and full credit to the Bucks, who are now 4-1, beating the Knicks and the Warriors in back-to-back games, and Golden State, which have been cruising along and was 4-1, now 4-2. So we haven't talked since the opener when the Warriors won pretty handily in LA against the Lakers. A lot has happened in the interim. So I will leave the floor to you to start with. What is your biggest takeaway and stock up or stock down as we're, 6 games and 9, 10 days into this season?
Stock up for a high school basketball player in the tunnel over there. He just got a couple pictures with Steph Curry. Him and his
Ooh,
family, they were pumped about it, leaving the
I can
arena.
imagine.
Yeah, I believe it was one of Draymond's college teammates' sons, who's like a big time high school basketball player
I'm
around
just
here.
gonna I'm just gonna stop you right there to say that that sort of sums up where we are with the
Yeah,
Warriors, that we
yes,
have meetings between the sons of college teammates of Warriors core dynasty players
yeah,
at this point in their
yeah,
careers. It's
yes.
a
You're
reminder we're
correct.
getting closer to the end than the beginning, is all I'll say.
Well, tonight was a little reminder of that. They look creaky in Milwaukee, and the Bucks did play well. Fast, free was the word that was used by the Warriors a ton post game. They were impressed, obviously, with Ryan Rollins. You mentioned it, Ryan Rollins, which you remember which trade he was in?
I believe he was a part of the Jordan Poole Chris
He
Paul
was
trade. Am
he
I
was
right?
attached to Jordan Poole at the end, as they were maneuvering around him, trying to free up roster spots. Really, that was, they had to throw him, and Patrick Baldwin Jr. was the other just throw into the DC deal for that. But
One of
anyway,
those guys, one of those guys is toiling obscurity in the G League, and one of them went for 25 and 32 against the Knicks and Warriors this week. You guys can figure out which is which.
and I'm not sure I would have predicted if you told me that one of the two was going to do that when that trade went down. I may have gone with Baldwin Jr. just because of the pedigree going into the draft. He was the first rounder of the two.
And he
Uh,
was a guy that was a huge high school prospect. Rollins,
yeah.
who went to Toledo, was a second round pick, rated really well in the analytics models. He has bounced around a little bit, but he's settled in with the Bucks. He's on a 3-year, $12 million deal that he signed this summer. Looks like it's got a chance to be one of the best bargain deals
Yeah.
in the league. I do a column every year laying out the best team made up of non-max and non-rookie scale contracts in the league. Pretty sure Ryan Rollins making $4 million a year with his skill set is going to fit on it. And yeah, like you said, the Warriors playing against a young, you don't think about the Bucks being young and athletic, but they had a lot of young guys running around, and the Warriors did look a little old, which isn't entirely surprising, having flown across the country for the start of a road trip, but still not an ideal way to
Yeah.
kick off this swing through the Midwest.
I sat down with Kerr at shoot around today in Milwaukee for something else, but the conversation towards the end veered into tonight, and he was scared of this game tonight with Giannis. He was just hoping to, keep it close at half, work off some of the airplane legs, all that. And then apparently, as he told me post game, when he heard Giannis is out, and I mean, it was like 30 minutes prior to tip. I mean, it
Yeah,
was
he
a
was probable all day. He'd been
yeah,
probable the last couple games, and all of a
yeah. I
sudden
mean,
he was out. Doc
well,
even had said, I believe he
yes.
expected him to
In
play,
his
and then he was
pregame, he
out.
said, I think he's going to. I mean, it was like, yeah, we'll see. But yes, it was completely expected that he was going to play. And he gets ruled out to the point I'm like telling a couple of the coaches with like 32 on the clock, like, hey, Giannis is out. And it's like, scramble back to the back and change up the game plan. And
And
Steve said,
that's
yeah,
just a classic NBA regular season loss for Golden State. No, not making excuses. Obviously, they shouldn't have
yeah,
lost the game, but many times have we seen this play out with teams across the league where you see a big time player not play at the last second. The other team has absolutely nothing to lose, and the results are what they are.
Yeah, Steve's quote post game is he said, I think we're 0 and 12 the last few years when teams sit their stars, and he said if he was an opposing coach, he would just sit the star against the Warriors. Well, it's a little excusey. Particularly
Oh, it's
what
it's a bad loss, but it's
yes,
also it's a loss we have seen plenty of times. It's a very
yes.
natural letdown game, and the Warriors had a letdown.
But yeah, he mentioned mental and physical fatigue, even though it's early in the season. It's a little bit of a road heavy, condensed schedule. I think 6 and 10 days in 4 different cities, whatever. And they have a 6 game road trip coming up, by the way, which is bad. But the specific schematic thing you mentioned, they tried to switch a lot and didn't do it well. Him and Draymond were very critical of the way they, you know, executed their switching scheme in this game. And, that's I think can be attributed to maybe like some of the slow-footed nature, when they're playing kind of at 80% whatever capacity. Al Horford, stock up, stock down. We could probably say from this particular game, Al Horford stock down. I think he was. I don't know if you have the stats up. He was minus a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
one of six shooting, 1 of 4 from three, minus 20, game worst in
yeah.
20 minutes. And I actually wanted to get to Al Horford because I think one of the interesting things that's happened over the last week has been some of the starting lineup choices for Steve Kerr, and specifically the last couple games when they've had their complement of guys. They have started Quentin Post and they have had Al Horford come off the bench. And this is something you talked about last week and you talked about during the preseason, which was with Al Horford, as we've talked about a lot, a guy who you expect to really not want to play more than 25 minutes max, especially during the regular season. What is the best way to parse those minutes out? Might be if he's a full-time bench player. I did not really think that would be the case. And it seems like
Steve
10
said it.
days into the season, we're trending that way.
Beyond trending it. So he names Kuminga the fourth starter prior to the previous game, the win over the Clippers, and then post game announces that the fifth starter will be rotating, but it's only rotating between Brandon Pajemski if they're going smaller and Quentin Post if they up bigger. And he said he wants to keep Al Horford as the bench player, so that is the plan. Again, can shift, can change. We know probably will with Steve Kerr, especially if they hit a losing skid. But yeah,
But
Al Horford.
it's what they
Yeah,
should do. You have to manage Horford's minutes. The whole point of having him is to have him ready to go in the spring. And if you play him too many minutes now in search of wins in October and November, he's going to run out of gas in May. I mean, he's one of the oldest players in the league. He's playing in the post. He's scrambling out to the perimeter to try to defend people. That's what you have to do with them. So I think that's been an interesting development. And you mentioned Jonathan Kuminga. Like I was talking to a scout tonight who was asking me, like, well, do we really buy that, Kuminga's starting and being part of the starting lineup and seemingly being a key piece for them, at least right now, or is this just trying to boost his trade value? And I said, well, look, at least from my vantage point, and you've watched the Warriors closer than I have, but I've been paying attention over the last week and a half. It certainly seems like Jonathan Kuminga is doing all the things, as we've been talking about since really he got back with the team, that the Warriors have wanted him to do for the past couple of years. And if he does that and keeps doing that, as you talked about all summer, and as we've talked about as he's gotten off to a good start, there is a real role for him to play on this team. And it seems like so far, I would say shockingly, only because of how nasty at times the summer got, it really seems like he's bought into that role and is performing it pretty well.
he's been their third best player, I'd probably say, through whatever 10
Behind
days of
Jimmy and Steph,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, Draymond obviously still does a lot on the defensive end, but the way Kuminga's scoring, the way he's rebounding, that was the best 5 game rebounding stretch of his career. He worked a lot on his passing this summer. And sometimes I think people just believe playmaking is instinctual or some of like, the quick, shorter, hit ahead passes, DHOs, that type of stuff. But it can be learned. That's a learned skill. I think we're seeing with Kuminga. Like he is making passes he wasn't seeing a couple years ago. And I think you can tell he's like liking passing. And that is, a huge deal for the Warriors. Obviously, to me, the rebounding is a mentality and it's an effort thing. And I've said for years, go look at history. He's had monster rebounding stretches when he is a starter, when he knows he's playing, when Andrew Wiggins has left the team and Steve Kerr has to say, hey, Jonathan Kuminga, you are getting 30 minutes tonight, no matter what mistakes you make. And that is what is happening right now. He's a matured version of himself, a fifth year version. He's a good player. He feels really good about his game right now. He feels like he felt all summer when you would talk to like, him or his people, it would be like despite all the drama, it would always come back to, "Ooh, he looks good right now. Man, he feels good about his game right now. Man, that Minnesota series just trampolined him into his summer." And there was like, and obviously it's like you're going to be hyping your guy up, and,
Well,
and he's going to be hyping himself.
it's
Yeah,
one thing to say that, right? It's another thing to come into the season and back it up. And to his full credit, for the first 6 games of the season, like you said, I think he's pretty clearly been their third best player, and he has done all the things that Steve Kerr has wanted to do. It's not always been perfect. Like tonight, he had 4 assists and 5 turnovers. That's not great, but he's trying to play within the team concept. He's showing effort. He's running the floor. He's hitting the boards. He's moving the ball, and he's delivering some offensive production too. Like this is the kind of player that they need, and they don't really have, as you've repeatedly said, they don't have a guy with his athleticism, his ability to guard on the ball, to do the different, to even be an isolation scorer. They don't necessarily have a guy like that when he's in a good rhythm. So, I certainly think if you told me at the start of October when this whole drama came to a conclusion that we'd be sitting here on early in the morning on Halloween talking about Jonathan Kuminga having the first 6 games that he has had, I would have said that's a pretty stunning turnaround from where this thing looked like it was. And I think his stock is definitely about as high as it's been, I think, at any point that he's been with the franchise, which is hilarious given the complete gong show that the summer was and
he's on a
how it
he's on
got
a
to
team
this
friendly
place.
deal. He's on a team
He
friendly
really
deal
is.
at this point. I mean, he's
He really
outplaying
is.
he's outplaying his current contract number, and he has a team option on next season, and we'll see. I mean, it'll be it's very interesting because as you were looking towards this situation in the future, and we can just call it January 15th, right? That's when he's trade eligible. It was always going to be, sure, if he doesn't play well, or if it's just, really kind of angsty behind the scenes, whatever, it might be hard to trade him because his value might not be that high. But then it was like, okay, well, sure, they can showcase him and he can start and he can have these type of performances. But now, again, the conversation will shift to where it always has when Kuminga has the hot stretches, which is like, should they trade him? This is the type of guy they need. Because they're starting, 3 right now.
Well, and the other part of it too, Slater, which has sort of been slid under the radar, is there's not a lot of obvious names for the Warriors to go get him with, right? And that's use him to go get. And that, I think, is the other side of the coin, which is if they do make a trade with Jonathan Kuminga during the season, who is it for and what does it look like? And I think
does it make them better?
Well, right. And if you really start to drill down on options around the league, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not like there's 15 guys. Oh man, they all would be awesome fits and are attainable players. So, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch, as it has been since the moment he signed the contract. And with every game he plays well and he continues to grow into a real big responsible role on the team, it makes what was a fascinating story in the summer because of the hypothetical things you could theoretically turn Kuminga into.
Dub Nation, this one is wild. Like, I'm shaking because what just hit the rumor mill might be the biggest trade talk we've seen in years. I'm talking about the Golden State Warriors and Joel Embiid. Yeah, you heard that right. Joel Embiid, MVP, one of the most dominant big men on the planet. And now he's being linked to the Dubs. I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, but let's walk through it because this could be a franchise-altering move. Now let's rewind for a second. The Warriors are 4-1 to start the season. We've looked strong. Steph is still a magician. Jimmy Butler's impact is already being felt. Draymond's anchoring the defense like he never left. Kuminga is finally growing into the player we've all been waiting for. But let's keep it real, because if you've been watching these games closely, you've seen the same issue over and over again. The lack of size, rim protection, and consistent rebounding is a major concern. We're 23rd in rebounding, 24th in blocks. Teams are living in our paint. And yes, Al Horford was brought in for stability, but the man is 39. He's already missing games. Looney's gone. And we are one injury away from getting torched inside every night. Enter Embiid. When healthy, He's not just good, he's generational. Dominant post scorer, elite defender, rim protector, floor spacer. He's one of the few bigs who can switch, guard, block, and stretch. And paired with a veteran-savvy team like the Warriors under Steve Kerr's system, that's scary. That's nobody wants to see us in the playoffs level scary. Imagine this: Steph running the perimeter, Butler slashing and defending, Draymond orchestrating, Horford spacing, and Embiid commanding the paint. Tell me that's not a nightmare for opposing coaches. Tell me that's not a top 2 lineup in the West. Minimum. But here's where things get complicated. The money. Embiid's contract is massive. He's making over $55 million this year alone, and even more moving forward. To make this work financially, reports are saying the Warriors would have to give up Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga, possibly more. That's your emotional leader and your most promising young talent. And I know what you're thinking. That's too much. That's our culture. That's our backbone. But let me ask you this. How many more years of Steph Curry at this level do we have? How many more deep playoff runs can we count on with this core? Because with Embiid, you're not trading for the future. You're trading for a chance to win now. Yes, the health concerns are real. He hasn't been fully healthy since early 2024. But let's not forget, even when playing limited minutes, he's a problem. And come playoff time, if he's at 80%, that's still better than 90% of centers in the league. Now let's talk cost again. Some say don't break the culture. And I respect that. But the same culture also says you do whatever it takes to give your franchise legend, Stephen Curry, one more real shot at a ring. You don't waste greatness. You don't hesitate when legacy is on the line. The Sixers, on the other hand, may not even be ready to deal Embiid. If he gets healthy before the deadline, they're title contenders. But if he stays banged up and Philly decides to pivot, the Warriors might be the perfect trade partner. They've got assets, they've got picks, and they've got urgency. This isn't about building for 2030. This is about capitalizing on the window we have right now. Jimmy Butler didn't come here to babysit rookies. He came to win. And Steph, the man deserves a front office that matches his fire. So here's where I land, Dub Nation. I say pull the trigger. If and only if Embiid is healthy. If the doctors clear him, if the staff believes he can hold up for the rest of the season and playoffs, you swing for the fences. Because that lineup wins games, that lineup wins the West, that lineup could bring one last banner to the Bay. But hey, I'm just one voice. Now I want to hear from you. Would you trade Draymond and Kuminga for Joel Embiid? Is it worth the risk for a player of his caliber? Or is that just too much to give up, even with a title on the line? Drop your take in the comments. Let's talk about it. Smash that like if you believe the Warriors need to go big before it's too late. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Join the family. This is Warriors Nation News. And if the front office pulls this off, we might be watching history. Let's go.